So we're going to get to a bunch of questions here, but first let's talk a little bit about the success of this Florida program over the last couple of years. Two-time national champs, right? Coach of the year. What's been the big difference? What has led to Florida Club Water Polo being so strong the last couple of years?
Well, I will say too, officially, it was only one time national championship. We're just calling ourselves the national champions this year because there was no national championship. I just want to
Fair.
represent honest.
No, that's fair.
um,
That's fair.
well, I think Florida has always been a dominant force in club water polo. We have amazing high school programs in Florida. I mean, your next guest is Ashley Johnson. She's a product of it. And so, we've always had amazing players come play for us. There are no varsity programs in the Southeast. So anyone who's good at water polo in the Southeast who wants to play at a college level either has to travel far or come play for a club team. So, we've always been really lucky that the really best players come to us almost all the time. So we get really good players right out of college, but then we also recently have started getting some players who are coming back from playing D1 undergrad, and they come to grad school at UF and they can play with us because the CWPA eligibility is as long as you're a full-time student. So we've gotten a couple really amazing players down from D1 who just have great backgrounds, who can help us with new stuff, who are obviously, just top level athletes. So them combined with my top level club athletes from high school, it's just been amazing.
Talking about college club water polo, we'll get to some questions here. I think the first thing that people think about when they think of club sports is depending on where you go, there's a different level of seriousness to it. So in your experience, what is it like for those that are only maybe familiar with what they've seen going to a D1, D2, D3, JC game? How is it different at the club level?
So do you mean like going to watch a game or like actually being a club athlete versus a D1 athlete?
Exactly. Being a club athlete versus I think being an athlete at a different type of program where maybe there's a
Right.
different level of recruiting, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so with a club team, you can just join. At least at UF, we don't have cuts. So even if you've never played water polo before, you were a swimmer in high school, and we've even had some girls who weren't swimmers. They just want to come learn how to play a new sport, which is amazing to me. So any level of experience whatsoever can come play with us. So that's one big difference is that, you don't have to feel out of your depth because there's going to be other people on the pool deck who have also not played. Or if you're a really high level of experience, the club teams like UF who have established coaches, they tend to be a little bit more organized. I think there are girls who run their own club teams and they do an amazing job, but for the most part, the teams that you see going to nationals, the teams that you see succeeding year after year are teams that have a coach who show up on deck to help coach. Um, so I think that's one big difference is that you could play for a club team that doesn't even have a coach on deck. It could be girls coaching themselves or a grad student who's no longer playing coaching, or a men's team member will coach the women's team and the women's team will coach the men's team or go back and forth. But a lot of the really successful ones do have a coach. So that's one big difference. Another difference is we don't practice as often. We definitely practice a lot. We have off-season practice in the fall. We go 3 days a week for an hour and a half to 2 hours. And then in season, we have 4 practices. Now, those are our practices at UF. That's the pool time that we get at UF. But then programs like mine who really are working very hard to succeed and get to the postseason, we also, like my girls will come play with our masters team in Gainesville. On off days, they'll go do dry lands by themselves. They'll do swim sets once a week. They have an extra swim set every day. Once on Wednesdays, like before practice, they'll swim for an hour and a half and then we'll have polo. So there's a lot less time commitment as far as weekly, daily practices than like a D1 school, for example. And then we don't have like dedicated time in the weight room like a D1 school would have. The girls can set their own schedule for that. So it's a little bit more flexible. You're not expected to show up in the weight room at, Tuesday, Thursday at 3 p.m. or whatever. They can go in their own groups if they want to, or they can choose not to go to the weight room. It's all about their level of commitment. So that's another big difference is that really for these club athletes, it's all them. It's all self-motivation. It's all how much commitment they want to give. And that's a little bit different. As a coach, as a D1 coach, I can say like, you need to get to practice or you're off the team, As a club coach, I have to find a balance with that because I really want them to come to practice. And I played varsity, and that's my background and that's my discipline. But I also have to know that they did choose to play club for a reason. They did not want to dedicate their whole college career to playing water polo at that level. So I have to respect that, and I have to be flexible with them. And I can't say like come to every single practice or you're off the team, because then I wouldn't end up with anyone.
It's very interesting. And the way you're describing it, it really feels like it's a team by team or case by case basis on what level of intensity the team, and then in your case the coach, all want to work together to have for that group. And I'd gather the ones like yourself that put the hours and the time in are the ones that just end up being more successful.
Usually, yeah. I can't speak a lot for how the other, club teams across the divisions had their pool time or anything like that, but almost always the teams that get to nationals or the teams that win their regionals are in great shape. They do swimming, they work on drills, they come to practice, they encourage team accountability so that they do show up at practice, because it's not scholarship accountability or roster accountability. It's person to person, it's teammate to teammate accountability. So they'll encourage that. Again, most of them will have a coach who's dedicated on deck. Maybe they come to one practice a week, maybe they try to make all the practices a week, but there is somebody out there teaching them drills, helping them work on their skills, running subs during a game. There's just so many things that having a coach out there makes a difference for. But yeah, absolutely. It varies so dramatically. There are clubs that exist with 6 players who never actually get to play in a tournament. And there are clubs like ours. I've been coaching 13 years. We have like 40 girls on the roster sometimes. So it really varies. Yeah, we have a lot of girls. And that's another big difference too, is that, in a varsity program, everyone was recruited or, very high level talent, all the same. And the practices can be set up very specifically with that in mind. I'm coaching an A and a B team. And also sometimes we have so many girls, we have a non-travel team all in the same water during the same hour-and-a-half practice. So it takes a lot of organization and coordination and, older upperclassmen who are very skilled helping the new girls. So there's just a lot of different things that happen like just in a normal practice. And so there are probably clubs that deal with that as well.
Yeah, you're really bringing out the club part of the college club when you're talking about 40 plus people there and you're having to monitor that many people in the same body of water. People that we've talked to this week and a lot of the folks that have been watching, they're always very curious about recruiting and when to talk to a coach and that sort of thing. And I know you've described the club program as, in some cases, as simply just maybe see the flyer, get the email, show up to the pool. But are there people that you are in communication with ahead of time in a given year when you're bringing in freshmen or whoever new is coming in? What's the breakdown of ones that you've talked to ahead of time and others that you meet for the first time that fall or spring?
Yeah, good question. I think that's a huge difference too. We never recruited for years and years and years. We just were like, well, whoever shows up on deck, that's who our team is. And of course it worked out. And then at some point we realized that, we wanted to make sure that people were aware there was a team. We had one of our top players who we said, did you know, were you so excited to play when you came to UF? Like, was that part of the reason you chose UF? And she was like, I didn't even know you had a club team until I got on campus. We're like, okay, we have to fix that immediately. That's totally unacceptable. So yeah, we did start, we reach out, we see who's on the all county teams from high school. We know we have some connections with some of the high school coaches that we've seen at tournaments that we know. We try to get our girls to go back over breaks and talk to their club teams. So freshmen walking on deck, maybe 30%, 20%, 30% we've talked to before, not a huge amount. There's definitely surprises every year. And some of them are, most of them are amazing surprises because they're either bringing in talent we didn't know about or they're bringing in a whole new opportunity to learn how to teach someone who's brand new.
We've seen a couple of comments here, and it could be current or former Florida Gators and their excitement, but there's a talk, at least in a couple of comments, about the dedication to it, right? So if you're doing a club sport, right, we're talking about a non-scholarship situation, you want to be there. As you've alluded to, the motivation really has to live within the athlete. You can only crack the whip, quote unquote, so much. So from your standpoint, how would you describe the club athlete that's doing it at a high level? It feels like there's a high level of dedication there.
They are, I'm always just so amazed at how dedicated these girls are. I mean, last year we are prepping for nationals. We were having 3-hour practices. They were staying when other girls were going on break. And every once in a while I just sat back and I was like, why are they doing this to themselves? Like, why do they let me give them a test set every Sunday? Why do they do this? And they just are driven, motivated, dedicated individuals who just really love the sport. And I think that that's one of the main things that we try to keep in mind, is that like they don't have to be there. And so we find people are gravitate towards us who just love the sport or find a love of the sport if they just start it, and we just stoke that love. Like, we have fun, we connect, we make sure they connect with each other. We bring in outside groups, we play other teams. We just make sure that like everything we do is centered on like a love of the sport and having fun. And I think that just takes these naturally dedicated, motivated individuals and just takes it up another level for them and helps keep it worth it in a sense.
This is probably, yeah. No, clearly they do, right? I mean, you obviously have a big role, but if they're not into it, then you're only going to be able to do so much.
Right. Well, and I mean, I do very little. I mean, I show up and coach. I coach practices and
Yeah.
I coach games, but like, I don't know the finances. I don't schedule anything with
Okay.
Zoe. I don't pay the league fees. I don't get the hotels. I don't do transportation. The girls do all of that. There's like a group of officers that are nominated and they deal with all of that stuff. So it's an added benefit to me of doing club, is that you get all this amazing managerial and project management and communication skills, because they have to communicate to rec sports. Like, they just get so many extra things out of it. And I honestly, like I say, I just show up and coach. I just know the water polo.
In college, those campus activities, the TV station, the newspaper, there were advisors. In a way, they were coaches, but it was sink or swim as far as the students that operated the thing. And not that you're not doing stuff, but as you said, it's really on these players to make it successful, or they'll fail on their own as well.
In every way, right? In the water, in games, running the club, in every way, it is on them to make the leap and dedicate themselves and follow through with it in every single way.
I think, and this could be a hard thing to quantify, but people are curious, and I know it's going to really run the spectrum, but the quality of play, the competitive nature of this level of water polo, is there something you could compare it to if someone lives in the Northeast and they've seen Princeton play, or they live in Southern California and they've seen JC and Division One? Do you know where maybe your team fits in, and without knocking any other teams or who you think you might beat, but just in a general sense where you might fit?
Yeah, we last year and the year before, in our run up to winning nationals, when we just knew and we were focused, we actually played a couple of varsity teams, and we played a D3 team, and we've played a couple D3 teams in the past. And I think that we can certainly compete with most D3 teams. And I don't know anything about like D2, that level. I don't know much about the JC level, but I think some of the newer, younger D1 teams we could have great games against. Certainly like a Princeton or a Stanford. I mean, those are top level amazing athletes, and nobody can really compete against them.
Well,
But
you
yeah.
need to watch out, because Brown Water Polo in the comments here just invited you to a game along with Marist. So
Hey,
you might have a couple of
all
D1s now
right,
on the schedule.
we're in. We'll play. We'll do our best.
That's excellent. That's excellent. So we're talking with Katie Larson here, University of Florida, Women's Collegiate Club Water Polo, one of the best programs here in the country. A lot of questions have come in about the different levels of water polo and how it all kind of works together. So what else should people know about water polo at the college club level? Maybe just something, a frequently asked question you get, or something you feel like you're often having to explain.
Yeah, I think a lot of what people wonder about is the commitment, is, how much time am I going to have to commit to this if I say I'm going to join this club team? And so, we talked about that a little bit. It varies from club to club. I don't know if I think we're probably pretty normal with 3 or 4 practices a week. So a lot of people ask about that. They ask, do I have to try out? And that might also be school to school. We don't have tryouts. I can't refuse, you to my pool. So yeah, everyone's welcome. And I think I would do that anyway. So that's a big question. Is there money? Like, can we give money? And the answer is no, there's no scholarships for club teams, like, ever. That's just the nature of a club team. So, we can't give you any money. Do you have to pay for stuff? That's a big question I get. UF does an amazing job, and I'm sure, again, every school is different, but we have to meet certain criteria, and if we meet different levels of criteria, we get different levels of support from the school. And of course, my girls being the absolute best, we always meet the highest level, and we get a lot of support from the school. And so a lot, they'll get transportation. Most of the money they have to front, so they have to pay for hotels, they'll have to pay for gas, but then it'll get reimbursed out of different budgets, and so there is definitely more. We pay for our meals. We don't get a stipend for meals on tournaments or anything like that. We stay at as many girls to a room as we can, and all that good stuff. So there is definitely just more personal output, at least compared to my experience of money and paying for stuff. And we, sometimes we'll get a van, sometimes we'll carpool. It's just, I think, in general, people just ask questions like that, like the logistics of it all, like how does it work on a day-to-day basis?
Is there an academic threshold to meet to stay active in the club?
I don't think so. That's a really good question. I'm actually not sure.
Yeah.
Not to brag, which is what I'm probably going to do this whole time, but my girls are always high on that level. So
Sure.
I don't think, I've never experienced anyone not being able to practice with us, but it's possible. I mean, it is a UF sanctioned thing when we go through UF rec sports. So there probably should be.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you would have heard about it if you were having a bunch of people that were not academically eligible.
Right. Right.
A question I'm sure you get a lot, and if you have questions for Katie about club water polo, please put them in the comments. We're talking with Austin Raymer, a new program in the state of Arizona, and similar to Florida, it's a warm climate. It's one that has a lot of outdoor activity, and people will often ask the question, well, why isn't water polo bigger in Florida? We know that it has gotten bigger in the South Beach, Miami area. We know it's growing in the Orlando, Jacksonville, Tampa area. But given the amount of aquatics, I think we all agree, right, it could be a bigger deal. What's your feeling, and what have you seen as far as the growth, and what do you think the potential for growth in that state is?
Well, I mean, I think that we have people at every level of the sport, high school, youth, club, middle school, everyone in Florida, I feel like at this point is working really hard to grow it as much as possible. Everyone is just really dedicated to making it big here. We have a beautiful climate. Our pools are pretty much all outdoor. We can practice year round. We're always the tannest. We have a really good setup for it here. And like you said, Miami and Orlando, I mean, those are established programs that have been around for decades and decades. And these, epic coaches who have coached there forever. And so I think those areas continuing to grow, continuing to send people to JOs, continuing to get big, whole teams worth of very talented athletes, and getting those athletes to D1 schools. I think that helps, because then those athletes come back and they keep growing the sport too, right? They go play at a D1 and they come back and coach, or they come back and start a youth league, or, that kind of thing. Even Gainesville, which is a really small town, we have, David has done a great job establishing youth water polo here, and it's been really fun to watch. And I'm just really hopeful it's still around when my kids are old enough. So, I think in general, we just need to continue. I think a big part of it is mentorship. I think that, we're pockets. And so I would love to have someone who's coached water polo for 20 years in college come with me on deck and tell me what I'm doing right and what I'm doing wrong, and new drills and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's just, I would love to see more communication and connection. And maybe they have it at the high school level, and I just haven't, dived into it yet or whatever. But I think just making sure that the people who have been around and who do know what they're doing, and who have had, more contact with the out of Florida world, so to speak, come back and just mentor those who are here to help them get those programs set up. And if you have any interest in water polo, start a club, be a coach. I was terrified when I started coaching, and I was like, I don't know what to do. I can't ref a scrimmage. I don't know when to blow the whistle. I was what if I say something wrong? What if I tell them the wrong thing? But through all of that, it just has gotten easier, and the love of the sport just, brings us through. So I think if we all just work together and, we have a pretty tight knit community in the Southeast. And so as long as we keep helping each other and not, and not competing with each other, helping instead of competing, I think that's really helpful.
And you can just blow the whistle whenever. People will figure it out. So it's either an exclusion or an offensive, and just go the other way.
Out, yeah.
Exactly. What about college water polo at a higher level in Florida? So we saw Texas get varsity water polo back for the first time since the 70s, when Austin College started a couple of years ago. Florida has such an amazing, rich Division I college sports history. Think of the place you're at now, Florida. I know I'd love to see the Florida Gators Division I. Is that the dream for someone like yourself to take it to that next level? Where does that kind of come into your mind?
I mean, I would love to see D1 water polo in Florida. I think that it would be amazing. It would help grow the sport. It would explode the sport. I think there's a couple things that stop me from just being like, absolutely, today I want a D1 program. One is, who would we play? Every game would be a travel, and it would be a huge travel budget, and all those logistics. I think that would be a big deal. You couldn't just do one, right? You'd
have to bring in many, right? Yeah,
you'd have to do multiple, and the girls would just have to be willing to travel. I also really love the opportunity for these high-level Florida players to stay in Florida and play for Florida. And I think it's important to the perspective of keeping Florida players at Florida, in a sense, making sure that if it did go varsity, that we were still pulling from those Florida pools, like Florida schools, and obviously not only Florida, but, getting those Florida locals to stay and play for Florida. They've been Florida fans their whole life, and having them able to play for that school instead of pulling from outside of Florida, that would be my concern, is that girls would fall in a gap, like the girls who are really good, not willing to leave Florida, don't want to pay out of state tuition, who want to stay. I would want to make sure they still had that high level opportunity to be a part of the program.
No, you're exactly right, and that's something that every new program runs into. You look at the Austin programs in Texas. I think probably 90% of their rosters, if not more, are all Texas kids that stayed in Texas. Right. But then you've seen other teams that have started elsewhere, and it's maybe a mixed bag, right? They've had to go 50% to somewhere else, maybe California, Pennsylvania, to kind of build that roster. So you're right, that would certainly be something to consider. I'm curious about, and when I think of Florida and I think of SEC football on Saturday afternoons and that sort of thing, what are some of the inherent rivals that your team takes on? Is it all those same teams that we see in basketball and football, just at the club level, and is there that same intensity?
Yeah, we definitely have rivalries. I think that probably our biggest rival right now is UCF. They are always a dominant force in the Southeast region. We have been like 1-2 and 2-1 for probably the entire history almost of the clubs. FSU, also a big rival for us, of course. The girls are Gators, like whether they're water polo players or not, they're Gators. So they're going to have rivalries with these schools. And then schools will have their own rivalries. I think that obviously they're healthy, and I encourage them to a level where we respect all the teams we play, and we have to make sure that we understand that rivalries are important, because that is us like respecting the technical ability and the ability of that team to beat us. So our personal rivalry might be like UCF in the region, and then out of the region, the past couple of years we've battled with Davis and with Cal Poly a couple times. Michigan's always up there as a big club. So I think for the most part within region, I'm sure most regions have like their top 2 or 3 generally that battle it out. And then nationally, a lot of the same clubs will go to nationals year after year. And so seeing the same clubs at nationals, knowing, oh, that's going to be my, second game next year or whatever, that'll build rivalries as well, of course. Yeah. So it just depends on the strength of the program at the schools.
We're talking with Katie Larson, University of Florida Women's Collegiate Club head coach, defending champs, honorary 2020 champs, as you've noted. Although it's fitting you referenced UCF and an honorary championship in the same conversation. They did that with football, I think, a couple of years ago. So perfect timing by you. Some people watch the NCAA Division One championship on the internet, or they go in person. We had the first ever Division Three collegiate championship. That was a great environment in Southern California in December. This current one, unfortunately, got postponed with coronavirus. It'll be next spring for the women. What is the atmosphere like at collegiate club national championships? People that are competitive, they obviously want to win a title. What is that like for those that are dreaming of that end goal for your team?
Oh, it's absolutely so much fun. The CWP does a really good job of putting the tournaments on. They're very well run. The games are well organized. We always have these beautiful pools and great towns to visit for the first time. And the teams come. I mean, the teams that go to nationals are just there, to win it. Everyone, I think, comes in with the dream of getting all the way to the top, and it's certainly a lot of mutual respect between the teams, the coaches, especially the ones, like myself and SDSU and Notre Dame. I mean, there are clubs, programs that have had coaches on deck for 10, 20 years. The Notre Dame coach has been there for 20 years. So we know each other, and, we help, build that energy because we're excited to see each other. We're excited to play against each other, and the girls get excited. And I think you also see friendships between teams. You sit next to each other and you cheer for the same team, and then you have a connection. So it's a lot like, I'm sure, any national tournament. I think there's a lot more at ours because we have 16 in the one tournament, which is amazing because it just gives us a chance to see clubs from every region, basically, which you don't see for the most part. But it's awesome. I mean, we have crowds and great refs, of course, and just, announcers, and they ask us stuff about the girls, and they get to do the lineup and, so it's really nice. It's very well done.
Yeah, I think a 16-team championship tournament has a lot of other levels jealous because they'd like to see a postseason that big and that expansive. But that sounds like a very exciting event when you're talking about a postseason environment. We're talking with Katie Larson from University of Florida. Get a couple of more questions here. Really, really appreciate you kind of breaking down all the ins and outs. You talked about obviously the players that are competitive from Florida, the state, and they'll come to the school and they know what they're doing. But then maybe you get the person that shows up and they don't know what they're doing. They're maybe a casual swimmer, or they just want a team sport to kind of build out their social experience at college. What's that conversation like when you encounter someone who does not really know much about what they're getting into? How do you kind of sell them on the sport of water polo?
Honestly, it's a lot less me selling them, and it's more the team itself. We just have a policy of very open arms and welcoming anybody and helping anyone who needs help. And we have so much fun at practice, and the girls bring such a love to it that I feel like you just can't help yourself but love it and want to keep trying it once you've been to one or two practices. Certainly, at the beginning of the year, I let them know that, well, first the team has a meeting at the beginning of the year and they decide, like, are we serious this year? Are we fun this year? Like, what are our goals? That kind of stuff. And we make sure that everybody's on the same page with that. And then the new girls who have started and want to start to learn, we just make sure they understand, like, 100% we have space for new people. We want you to learn. We want the sport to grow. But at the same time, we are a high level nationally ranked club team, and we have to focus on that as well. So, we set the expectation that there will be times when, you guys are over here doing this drill and I'm over here with the A team working and working and working on this thing that we need to get better. And sometimes I'm over here with the new people and we're working and working, and the A team's running themselves. So, we just try to set the expectation. Obviously we get them in and we try to make sure they know how to tread, and we make sure they can go back and forth. And we have them do swim sets with us, and if they need to stop, they stop. And we just try to make sure everybody has fun and doesn't get overwhelmed or scared or, hurt.
We've asked every coach and athlete this with all the shutdowns and teams not participating as much as they did, schedules cut short. How is your group still staying in contact and staying in touch and kind of keeping that unity that you have when you're typically playing teams around the country?
Yeah, the girls, I think, do a lot of Zoom amongst each other. I would like to establish, we just had one the other day because all the officers are nominated and voted on. So they had like a whole group Zoom officer nomination voting thing. And at the end, I joined and we honored our seniors and stuff like that. So I hope that we make that a little bit more regular, but you know, the girls all do their own little Zoom things and everyone's active on social, and I'm pretty sure every single one of them is here right now, so this is a good
Yes.
way. Basically every single person I've ever coached is on, which is awesome. So yeah, so that, you know, we just try to keep in touch. We text, we call. You know, I make sure they know that I'm here for them if they're struggling with stuff. I have two small kids at home and I'm working here full time, so I can't be as available as, you know, a D1 coach and who's making this their whole life, which is awesome. But I, you know, I do the best I can, and my husband is my assistant coach. He's also available, and they lean on each other and they lean on the seniors, and you know, we just try to look forward to the future. It's sad though. I'm really sad for our seniors.
Yeah, this has been a very hard couple of months for seniors. I think it was kind of a 1-2 punch. First, the season ending prematurely, and then the second part realizing that it's not going to get made up in 2020. That's been very tough for a lot of seniors to handle.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's hard. And, you know, club's in a unique situation here where they could come back and do, you know, they have to have full credit to play. So they could come back and do another year and take full credit. But are they going to do that for a club program? And,
Yeah.
you know, they have eligibility forever. So they can come back for years and years if they want to. But it's just a matter of, you know, what are they going to make as a personal decision? And it's just, you know, girl by girl, they may come, they may not, but I don't, you know, we can't offer them another year of this or more money or anything like that. It's just all up to them.
So you're still holding out hope that Ashley Johnson signs on for maybe 2 more years with Florida.
I mean, anyone who wants to go to grad school or undergrad at UMass is welcome and 100% should play water polo with us because we are very welcome to everyone, even high level. We'll take you.
I'll bring that up to her later and see if she's narrowed down her graduate school choices. One more question for you before we let you go here. You have right. You played at UMass in college from Georgia, coaching in Florida. These are the areas that admittedly deserve more attention than they get in the sport of water polo. Something I know I've tried to work on a lot over the last several years. Even in areas where it's not getting as much attention and the growth is not as fast as probably we would all like. What has kept you involved all these years? What do you love about the sport? Why have you kept at it all these years later?
I mean, first and foremost, I just love the sport. Like, I just love being in the water and playing water polo. I can't, right now, I'm having a hard time figuring out what I miss more, coaching or playing. It's probably coaching, but yeah, I love playing the sport. I've played it since I was 15. It's been forever, and I can't imagine not playing it. So that's kept me involved a lot. It's just that I love it. It's like my only hobby, apparently, I found out now that I can't do it. There's nothing else that I do that much. So it's my hobby. But also just the community. I mean, there are people who are still playing in master's programs in Atlanta that I played with when I was 15, and they taught me how to play. And now we play against each other when my master's team plays their master's team. And, you know, it's just the same people that you meet, referees who have been around forever or who I played with and who are now referees, and people I played with who are now coaches, my girls who coached, you know, who I coached and now go on to coach other people. It's just an awesome community full of just really amazing people. I mean, I met my husband playing water polo, like at my whole life. I'm basically obsessed. So yeah, I think it's an amazing community. And I think you're from the East Coast too, right?
Yes.
So, it's just this great, it's small, but we're tight and we help each other out and we all want to grow the sport and everyone does their best. And it's just really fun to see everyone still playing.
Yeah, I know in this pandemic, there's a lot of pressure on social media to pick up a new skill, learn how to bake bread, maybe learn a new language, but sometimes water polo is just your thing.
I just can't, I'm trying boxing because you stand and then you kind of like get to punch. I don't know. It's just not the same. I just really want to play.
You speak for a lot of people that just really want to play and get back in the pool. Katie, this was great. Really, really helpful information. The basics of collegiate club water polo. Appreciate it and looking forward to seeing the Gators back in the pool soon.
Great. Thank you so much.